Carol. I'm part of an era of people continually looking to see what they could do with anything that was wearing out in the household. So when I was little, my mum came from the Yorkshire coalfields and from a very poor background, and we were still not very well off. Sheets, for instance, on the beds, if they became worn in the middle, which they did, but only after a very long time, she would cut them down the middle and turn what was called sides to middle, so that they had a very uncomfortable hand-sewn seam down the middle, but it lasted then for another few years. And all our clothes, and we didn't have many because unlike today, there wasn't cheap, fast fashion. Fabrics were chosen because they needed to be long-lasting. People made their own clothes because they simply couldn't afford to go to a shop and buy them. When they looked as if they were wearing a bit or, sort of needed to be remade into something else, then they would be cut down, they would be altered, and there was a time, I'm ashamed to say, when my mum used to cut down my dad's underpants to make dusters. And also when I was little, there was a flour mill near our house, and it was called Morton and Simpson's, and they used to then bag up their flour in cotton bags, and it was called early rising flour, and on the front it had stamped a blackbird pulling up a worm for flour. And I used to be very ashamed at school because my mum, when she'd used the flour, she would take the flour bag apart, wash it and hem it. So my handkerchiefs had Morton and Simpson's blackbird pulling up a worm. I have a coat which I still wear that belonged to my mum, and she had made it out of teddy bear plush, the fabric for teddy bears, but it was black teddy bear plush. She had made it in the 1940s when there were some terrible winters and nobody had central heating, and it's still very stylish and I love wearing it, and it's very warm. Last year I had it relined, so I took it to a tailor who took it apart, and inside there was another coat. So she had made a coat to fit over another coat so that it was absolutely like industrial lagging when you wore it in a shop. I used to have to leave shops because it was too hot. Having had a mum like that, I appreciate really good fabrics and what they can finish their lives doing in any kind of beautiful way. And one of the things my mum and her mum and all the women in the village in South Yorkshire that in the early part of the last century made rag rugs out of everybody's clothes that were completely worn out. And so when I was growing up, we had a lino, which everybody did of our station in life. Nobody had heard of fitted carpets. That was getting definitely above yourself if you had fitted carpets. So we had rag rugs on the floors. She would make a very smart one for the front room, and the one that had been in there would move into the living room, and then it would move into the kitchen, and then it would be remade again into a rag rug for the back step. But all our clothes and cast-offs and anybody else that she could lay her hands on were cut up to go into the rag rug. And so I could look down from my bed in my bedroom and see my dad's old sports jacket, my old school uniform, my sister's old coat, anything, and they were all recognisable, but unrecognisable, if you see what I mean, because she was very good at putting everything together in a really attractive way. But they were, in a way, they were memory rugs. And our dog was a rescue dog, and he was very, very hungry all the time, and we used to have our groceries delivered from Yorkshire Street, and the doors were always open, so when the groceries were delivered he would leave them on the kitchen table and go if Mum was out in the garden, and the dog would climb up onto the table and lift half a pound of butter or a bag of sugar. Didn't hurt them, and anyway he would just hide them under the rag rug. So they were there for when he needed them. At the moment I'm making a rag rug out of clothes, so these are remnants of this, that and the other that I've saved up if they've come my way. And I'm making this for a friend whose husband is Turkish and they're going to retire to Turkey, and it's a stylised depiction of tulips, because tulips come from Turkey. And I could actually, if we had lots of time, tell you all the different bits of things that are in it. I've kind of lived my life with that thought at the back of my mind always, that everything can go on. When you've finished with it, it can be good for someone else or for something else. I really hope that eventually we will stop this continual race for the latest thing and not put it in the bin. We'll think of another use for absolutely everything.